In the middle of what?
England.
In the middle of England. Awesome. What time is it there right now? It's like 7?
It's 8.
8 o'clock. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being willing to spend your evening with me. We're going to be talking about spotting blind spots. Oh, go ahead.
Hopefully I won't regret it.
All right. I hope not too. Since we're going to be talking about spotting blind spots, I know that you have a superpower in relation to catching those for businesses and also exploring this path towards effortless. That's really it's an important dynamic for me because I don't know anybody in life whose life is actually effortless. I know people who would claim it, but I don't know people who actually have that. And so that's one of the things that I'm excited to debate later on in the show, and give people an option to look at, if you can create a truly effortless life, awesome. And what are the pros and cons of doing so? So we'll take a look at that deep in the show after we talk about your vision. Before we dive in too deep, though, what resources do you recommend for visionaries and leaders out there? That could be books, movies, courses, you name it.
Oh, yeah,
What are
this is
three?
something that I looked at. Those that I recommend, okay, I got the question incorrectly because I think that the question was those that impressed me or helped me.
Yeah,
Which
what
is
three
not to
resources have
say,
helped you that might help other visionary leaders?
okay, so the first resource was very long time ago, and it was Dale Carnegie. How to win friends. Yeah, that's the one.
How to win friends and influence people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Huge.
So that was the first one, and then surprise, surprise, I had three more. So the first one, two of them are actually Buddhism and Taoism, and the book that really impressed me was The Art of Happiness by Dalai Lama. And both of these philosophies helped me in challenging times.
Mm.
And another person who helped me a lot going through challenging times was Wayne Dyer.
Was which one?
Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer. Got it.
So that's all I can recommend.
Oh, I like it. I like all three. That's awesome. So, with that said, we're going to dive into a quick break. We're going to be right back and we're going to dive into Erin Andrea Craske's vision right after this.
What you want to say that we have already started our show?
What's that?
We have already started?
Yeah.
When?
We started at 2 minutes, 58 seconds, 59 seconds ago. So no worries. We're off to the races. Hey, I as the show owner itself, right? Well, let's own this situation and opportunity. Those of you listening right now that are new to the podcast world, this is proof and evidence that you don't have to be perfect to run a podcast and be successful. It's far better to be authentic, real, and show up. So I'll hit that intro button now, and then we'll be right back. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business, and I'm excited to have Erin Andrea Craske here today with me. She's coming in all the way from England, and I appreciate her. She's a business strategic coach, and she does so much more than that. Just like most people who have a role in life, we have an identity beyond, and we're going to be diving into her vision today and seeing what she's all about. Now, before we bring her back on stage, we're always going to give away a couple of resources, recommendations, and of course, promote the water project. So without further ado, we're going to talk about Melissa Gray of the Law Spot. She's one of my favorite resources to have come across in years. And she came on this show. I was very tempted to cancel the episode because I don't get along with most lawyers. They tend to be fairly pretentious and condescending, and they kind of talk over your head. You end up hiring somebody and you don't understand what you got. That is anything but the truth with Melissa Gray. She came on. She was a fantastic nurturer. She's a human being first, and she also has the ability to really do great things in the legal space. And that's so important to me because one of my first startups, we got hit with a trademark lawsuit for the company that we own, the brand name of Restaurant Connect. And we spent $20,000 protecting our own brand name. We won, but did we when we spent that much money on the case? So if you don't have a legal counsel that you're super related with and excited about, that's also looking out for your growth in addition to protecting you, I highly recommend interviewing Melissa. Then there's Andrew Sosin of Recovery Unplugged. He just impressed me so much as a leader, and his organization impressed me so much. I was like, I want to include this in sponsorships. And the reason why is he's built an addiction treatment recovery program that is now available online. They're in 4 different states. They have over 400 employees. He's a fantastic leader. And the way they incorporate music into the healing process, obviously with the guitar behind me, it calls my name and my heart and my attention. So he's also been to Tony Robbins' in-person event 22 years in a row. So if you already align with the methodologies of Tony Robbins, that's ever given you any type of excitement or interest, I highly recommend checking out their hotline. Now, you may not have an addiction of your own, but in all likelihood, you know at least one person or have at least one family member who does. And this is an opportunity to get professional counseling and help. So if this serves even just one person, I'm glad that I brought it up. In addition to that, we've got the Water Project. The Water Project, I don't have my trusty water bottle next to me. I actually kind of need it right now, but not nearly as badly as so many other people in this world. There's millions of people who go without clean drinking water every single day. My hope is that you and I join forces together to help this initiative. What the Water Project does so well is they show us exactly where the money goes. So you're able to pick the project you want to support. You're then able to, if you donate $5 to it, for instance, they're going to send you a receipt, but they're also going to send you when the project is going to be completed, and they're going to give you updates to see the results of what it was you contributed to. And when I see this picture of kids celebrating water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day, it reminds me that I got to keep rocking the mic about this. I got to keep telling the world there's 8 billion people in this world to help. And the least we can do, if we're privileged enough to run something like a podcast, is call attention to that and perhaps help inspire others to make a difference that can last for generations. So if you have another cause that you'd rather hear us talk about on here, by the way, or one that you'd like to promote, don't hesitate to drop that in the comments. This podcast is all about helping others. And if you drop that link, you never know, I might contribute to it. I might bring it on this stage and talk about it and inspire others to contribute to it. The ripple effect of doing good goes far further than we even realize. So as we wrap that segment up, like I said, I'm going to bring Erin Andrea Craske on. We're going to be talking about her vision. Erin, thank you so much for joining me on Vision Pros Live.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Something tells me it's going to be exciting.
I think it will be. I hope I know the audience hopes so. So let's start from the beginning. What's your vision for those that you serve, Erin?
It's a very good question, and I was thinking about it, and I don't have one because every person that I work with have their own vision, and my vision is to make this vision come true.
And
As
your
much
vision is what?
is to help their vision come true as much as I can help it.
That's awesome. I love that. That's in essence the purpose of this exact show. So when I started this show, it was because I spent years accidentally controlling other people's visions. And I didn't know that I was being destructive by doing that. When I finally learned enough about leadership to step away from that and realize, you know what? It's not my place to control somebody else's vision, but I can have an influence on cultivating space for them or creating an environment where they can succeed with what they want. So I appreciate you bringing that up and drawing that into light. With
Yeah,
that,
I guess my role actually mostly is to let them uncover the resources that they already have. This
yeah,
is as much as I can do.
that's awesome.
Appreciate and validate their vision, whatever it is, because it does. And again, because I believe that everybody is as resourceful as we're born, as they want to be. It's just a matter of uncovering it. And this is what I'm here for.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit more in depth about your personal vision. What's that look like on a day-to-day basis, or even the 10, 20 year, 100 year? You can take that any direction you want.
I won't leave that long, you know. Thank you. I guess, well, my vision, as if we talk about my business, it's, I would call it the elevated world. And, this is what I aspire to make in this planet, to make our world better, a better place, a better society. So this is exactly what I do, because I also realize that irrelevant of how ambitious I may be, this is as much as I can do by myself. And it's not a lot. But if I partner with those people who have more power, I'm talking about businesses, they have more resources, they have more opportunities. If I make their business better, if I make it more sustainable, if I make it more profitable, they will be able to contribute more. So that's as much as I can do based on my background, my experience, and my goodwill. And this is what I'm doing. So for me, this is about elevating the world.
Absolutely. Let's dive into a darker subject. What's the worst leadership experience that you've ever had?
Oh, it's not that I ever had. Well, in the beginning, I became a leader very early in my career. I think I was 20, 24, 23 when I was given like the whole massive team to work with. And the first thing, I was very challenging not to micromanage, not to give direction, because I used to work at the level of excellence. And there's a big difference between perfectionism and excellence, by the way. I'm not perfectionistic. I'm not perfectionist. I love everything being, it's like my stamp of quality, stamp of approval. And I always wanted my team to deliver at the same level of quality because I was responsible for them and the whole team. And that is something that I found, first of all, it's very challenging to let go of, because you realize that not everybody is same, right? But I guess this quality standard that I was setting for myself and setting for other people, that probably wasn't fair. Okay, but we were very often we were the best team in the company. That said, that was, yeah. And I still don't know whether, I don't have a team at the moment. I don't know whether I could let go and just let it to be, at their level of quality. That's
It's,
it's
you
bad.
know,
It's
there-
because it's not proper. And I had another thing. Since we're so sincere and open, I used to be very friendly with my direct reports, and I learned, at least in corporate, you're not supposed to be that friendly. You're supposed to keep the distance. And very often I just treated them as friends, and we were going out together, and then we kept being friends, after. But during the work time, I don't believe that was the right thing to
yeah. So being friends can be especially difficult, and create new dynamics depending on the company culture within which somebody's working in as well. Right. So if and there's a lot of dynamics to that. It might be that you're working in an office environment where you happen to join a company where everybody's one religion, or one or two religions, and you may not be religious. And so then the dynamic of relationships outside of that environment may be affected by your personal life choices,
me. Yeah.
which then creates drama within the workplace. So depending on the setup and style of the work environment, I think that's something really helpful to be aware of. And that exists within subcultures within businesses that are more expansive. I don't have a lot of experience in that.
Mhm.
I've never done the corporate America thing. So I appreciate you bringing it to my attention, because I don't think I've thought about the depths of that dynamic um, enough, because I stay so far away from most companies that would have an issue with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't believe, they had an issue with that. I just don't believe that at times it was fair on my direct reports, such level of friendliness and openness. What I can say is trying to justify myself, if I may, because I never thought about it. I never wanted to be marketing director of a big corporate,
Yeah.
environment. I don't know why, but even when I was doing my career from the very beginning, when I was much younger, I was supposed to put in my appraisal that I would like to be a marketing director. And I was like, I don't. And my boss said, no, you have to write it down because otherwise you're never going to be promoted. So I wrote it down and I didn't realize why. But I just don't believe that, it was my role all the way through. I'm not really a corporate animal. I didn't really fit in. And I guess I just, because I'm fiercely authentic, I was just, doing things that I felt natural and comfortable. So yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
wasn't actually fair on everybody.
Well, let's dive into the light side and the opposite side of that coin. What's the best leadership experience that you've ever had?
The best leadership experience is very easy. Once joined a company where a team wasn't in a very good condition, it's to say at least, and they were micromanaged. I was already, when I was older and more mature, so already kind of could see the difference of how or knew how to work with people.
Uh-huh.
And so when I joined, I had to manage or launch two massive brands like this, massive brands. And I saw the team and I came to the boss, my manager. I said, you know what? I don't really care about launching because if I don't build a team right now, I will have nobody to launch it with. Right. So you bear with me. And I spent first 6 months just on building the team as much as I could. So they could move from crying, and they were crying physically at their desks,
Wow.
to being a better assigned team. And with so many steps that I took. It's from structure and organization, understanding their motivation, reshuffling roles, getting new people like fresh blood with fresh ideas. It's about, having a new structure, understanding responsibilities. So the whole thing was built from scratch. It was quite a big team. And yes, we did launch. And no, I didn't lose anybody. Um, that was
Awesome.
amazing. That was amazing experience. I think once in a lifetime you have an opportunity to make so many people feel better in the workplace.
Yeah, that is great
Yeah,
to be able to go through an experience like that and maintain the entire team is not easy to do.
yeah.
So let's dive into I say the hardest question, which is if this was your last chance ever to share a powerful lesson with visionaries, leaders, entrepreneurs, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
Hmm. From my experience, um, don't believe what you think is true because very often it isn't.
Go ahead and expand upon that. I like that.
Well, you know what? Again, because I didn't know what I can do in my life apart from being employee, because this is how I was brought up. Like many, many, people, they're all brought up to be an employee, and society expects it, and the education system expects it. And then you enter this world, and then you have this totally crazy idea that this is all I can do because I'm not fit to be anything else. I'm not fit to be entrepreneur. I don't fit to be this. Because that's all ingrained in your brain. But in reality, when we're born, we're all born exactly the same. We don't have such thing as entrepreneurial gene. It doesn't exist. So all what we believe we are, it comes from our conditioning. And many other things that we believe also come from our conditioning, whether it's parental, whether it's in school, whether it's societal, and we believe that is true. No, it's not true to ourselves, but it may not be even true generically. So don't be afraid of question what you think, especially when the thinking makes you feel uncomfortable.
I love that. I really, really love that. And here's the irony of that. I think it was on Monday. I'm going to give Sharissa Deppen the credit for this. One of my guests of this week, their powerful lesson, it was the exact opposite of your powerful lesson. And both are true.
Okay, tell me what was his.
Well, her powerful lesson, if it was Sharissa, it was to trust in what you believe, and to really have that centeredness around that. But they come from two different paradigms and two different realities with two different purposes.
Yeah.
And the context matters. If I've been brainwashed by my family that I'm a horrible kid, that I'm never going to amount to anything in
Mm.
life, that I'm going to go, X, Y, or Z. If I faced all these dark realities and that has become my inner truth, right? The one that I've built my identity around, then what you said is what I need in order to break free of that and begin to heal.
Exactly. Yeah.
On the flip side, if I have been able to nurture my soul and if I grew up or I found light and I know that I've created an intuition with myself that honors my vision, then knowing to stay with that when outsiders doubt, like what I'm doing, it's important to then trust in what you believe. So it's so amazing how two great leaders can come on here, share the exact opposite advice,
Yeah.
and the opposite advice is
And
applicable
both make sense.
depending on
Yeah.
where we're at. So that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure. You know what? It's actually part of my effortless philosophy
Yeah.
that we may discuss a little bit later. But the point is, in order to come up with your values and your beliefs and your purpose, first you need to get rid of those beliefs that don't serve you. And when you shed it off, you become yourself as you were born to be. From this place you can build those beliefs that you're going to be believing in, because they're going to be yours and not somebody else.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm excited to dive into the philosophy. We'll have some fun with that. As we dive into that. Yeah, stay with me. Stay effortless with me. You got this. So the in terms of spotting blind spots, and I should pull up what you wrote because I really did enjoy what you wrote about your submission for your vision. Let me pull it up real fast because what you wrote hit a lot of important strands that I know that our audience is well prepared to receive. So you said the world's evolving and our conditioning often involves managing businesses by attending to surface level symptoms while neglecting the underlying systemic issues. It resembles the ocean's surface. I love that analogy, where storms rage while tranquility reigns in the depths below. Continuously addressing surface problems demands considerable effort. But conversely, tackling the root cause once and for all results in an effortless journey.
Mhm.
In business, this translates to strategy. In leadership, it translates to self concept. In life, to freedom. And in profitability, it's about mindfully enhancing revenue streams, reducing stress, fostering satisfaction, and ensuing sustainable profitability flow. And you started to mention that may seem unconventional. However, on this podcast, I think the grand majority of our people agree wholeheartedly with that. They're in an environment where we're like, yeah, you nailed it. That makes perfect sense and aligns. So my
and,
question,
and this is why I'm on this podcast.
hey, there it is. And my question for you is, how do we help? How do we, as visionaries and leaders, begin to spot our own blind spots in business where we may not see that we're getting in our own way, or we're not making it effortless, we're making it harder because we kind of refuse to look at the problems or challenges that we have.
Well, I really am not a big um, fan of giving advice because it's very personal. But when you feel like you struggle, and in the beginning on the first page, you have three main symptoms that many business owners, I understand, agree with. So the first one is running like a headless chicken, and there are symptoms to that. The second one being trapped in a hamster wheel, and the
Being
third
trapped in the
one,
hamster wheel. Okay, so yes,
yeah,
headless chicken, hamster wheel. Go ahead. The next one.
and the third one being stuck in the rat race.
Yep, I
So
like that.
yeah, like animals are cute. So but they are metaphors that explain how we run businesses. And the funny thing is, they all mean slightly different things, but the end result is going to be your stress, your overwhelm, frustration, and burnout eventually, right? So that is an indication that something is wrong. That's the first one. And then you have many other indications. So, for example, if we talk about leadership, and that is just perfect because if you see that there's no creativity in the company, there's no innovation, there's no motivation or engagement, and who do you think you need to blame? Probably yourself,
Yeah.
because team has nothing to do with it. So that would be another indication. If team is not performing, look back at yourself. If you are running off resources and you still don't get where you want to get to, very often it will happen because you don't have strategy, because you are changing directions. And
Hmm.
every change of your direction, every time you're addressing a symptom, it will require additional funding of your resources.
Yep.
So, not getting where you want to get and spending what you have, that will lead to a situation when business is not going to survive,
Hmm.
right? It's another very simple indication. Um, Another indication for me is when we talk about holistic approach to business, when businesses don't, they forget that business has many different parts and all need to be taken care of. So when you frantically, focus on sales and KPIs, and it's all you want to know about on a daily basis, trying to fix, trying to make the KPIs better, and checking how much you sold, then you consider it to be pretty much the dead end of your business.
Hmm.
So those, I guess, they're pretty basic, but I don't believe just
Well, they're general concepts, and I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of I don't want to say advice, but like telling people what to do. The flip side to that though is the ability to talk about like how I overcome my own blind spots. Right? It may not work for everybody, but it's for sure what may have worked for me. I say for sure what may. The reason why is sometimes we can't recognize and diagnose what did work, even though we think we knew what worked. But if in terms of spotting your own blind spots in business, how do you go about spotting your blind spots? And when I'm referring to that, recognizing your symptoms as you grow.
um it's a very good question because I don't even know how to answer it, to be honest, because I don't want to flag it, but I think I mentioned it to you that I'm ego free. So I operate from a different place. And I also have this ability of, seeing the bigger picture and details simultaneously just because of my two personalities. They kind of, work hand in hand. I
Yeah.
also have a strategy. I love what I do, which makes a lot of difference, you know. So I, okay, I leave effortlessly.
You know the what?
I leave effortlessly.
Well, good.
Yeah, so I have a different mindset.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, from technical point of view, I know how to run business
Different than what? Different than somebody else or different?
than most people. Yeah,
Oh,
we can
interesting.
talk about it. Yeah. So, but basically, technically, I know how to run business because I have strategy background. So I know that strategy works, and I always know where I want to get. So I don't do anything for the sake of let me just try and see what happens.
Hmm.
All my activities that I do, they're strategically chosen because they're supposed to bring me something. And when I achieve what I want, I immediately drop it because that was like, temporary goal that I wanted to achieve. So that was one thing that
Well, I
really
have one question about that regarding your website.
yeah,
So if we go to the speaking page on your website,
yeah.
one, I don't do, I try to do everything intentionally, but, so I'm prefacing this because I also make plenty of mistakes in the process. I used to be a perfectionist. I watched Jake Larson turn video power marketing into a massive brand by being very dedicated to the 80% rule.
Mhm.
He would launch things raw and in draft
Yeah,
mode, and it was okay. Like he is part of why he's so cool. It's also part of why he's so successful. But there's a so anyway, we can find lots of flaws with our podcast, lots of flaws with first class business as we go, and we'll continue to refine those. With your speaking page, I noticed that the top banner image is a massive rave crowd,
yeah,
right? And it
yeah,
looks as though it gives the appearance that that's your crowd, right? That you were
yeah,
speaking in front of that crowd, but it never shows you in front of that crowd.
yeah. Because
Is
it's
that
all
your crowd or is that stock video?
no, it's a stock video because I found it really cool.
Uh-huh.
All people have like dressed up. I'm on the stage. I'm starting my public speaking.
Mhm.
So I don't have this massive Tony Robbins crowd in front of me.
I
But
think if people do that though, the challenge for us as leaders is then the audience doesn't know what's real and what's not. And
right,
so there's a lot of people that are choosing to put, as seen on different what like news article stuff, and they don't actually have it. Your depth does. I went and clicked on it, actually required me to go and click and say, well, wait a second.
yeah, I do have all those.
Does
I know.
she
Yeah,
actually have honest news articles? And I was like, good, you've got the depth of that discovered. But I would I would intentionally look at, okay, well maybe rather than putting yourself in a position where people do wonder,
yeah,
create that like pull that. But if you want to leave it, that's all always yours to leave. It's one of those areas that if I have something like that for my brand, I do hope my audience will let me know and say, hey Jackson, like what
right.
if how do you make that
Okay.
more aligned with the authenticity of the message? Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. You know what? I didn't pretend it was my crowd because if you look further, there's going to be another image of the lady on stage that actually is a rock singer. And I used to have another rock, band image. I
Yeah.
just thought it's just so cool, because obviously it's not, the audience that would be listening. Well, actually, I didn't know about
Well, it's not obvious though, and that's the challenge. And so I'm not saying you did it with the intention. I'm saying that when
I
it's
thought it would be
I
fun.
learned this with Uchi. Uchi is one of the top 10. Well, in 2010, they're ranked one of the top 10 most important restaurants in America. And the manager was talking to me about our software they used. Our
Right.
software would show them how long people were waiting and how long they were quoted. And I was kind of telling him, like, well, that person hasn't actually been waiting for very long. And he said, Jackson, he said, perception is reality for the guest. And so it doesn't
Yeah,
matter if the
I know
guest
this
is
one.
waiting
Yeah.
for 3 minutes or 30 minutes. If they have a perception that they're waiting for 30 minutes, then we as an operation, a service oriented operation, want to shift towards making sure that we do the best to get them a table sooner than later, and then reward the other guests that we may skip in other ways as VIPs of the experience. And I just thought it was really helpful and insightful for me.
Yeah,
And so
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add to the
yeah,
sentence because I believe you're going to love it. I heard a
agree.
similar one, which is totally amazing. Your customer's perception is your reality.
Your customer's perception is your reality. Teach me what that means.
It means that whatever your customer perceives about you, this is the reality you operate in. If they believe that you suck, that is your reality.
Gotcha. Well, I can see the value of looking at that to make sure if you're looking at it from the place of service, but Jesus's audience crucified him. And it didn't change the value of him. Martin Luther
Yeah,
King's
that's
audience crucified him, and it doesn't change the value or the virtues of what he stood for. Mother Teresa wasn't super well appreciated by everybody either. So I can agree that there's an opportunity for us as leaders to step back humbly and say, okay, is our audience one that one, do we have the right audience? That's going to appreciate our value. Two, are we willing to listen? I love Bill Gates' quote on it. The person who hates your brand has the best customer feedback for you.
that's very yeah. That's a very good one.
It's hard to listen, but
Although we
Mhm.
can also question this one. It's very similar to what I said,
Yes,
and it's
I
also
agree.
applicable.
100%. We have to
Do
take that
the
with a
same
grain of salt.
example that you've just given me.
Yes. And so it's so helpful to be able to take that mastermind step back, right?
Yeah,
And everybody and then see the different perspectives. So thanks for exploring those. One of my blind spots, by the way, and how I found it was actually going live on podcasts. One of my greatest blind spots is I have pretty weak diplomacy skills. If
right.
that's not evident to people by seeing my interviews, then that's okay. You might have some room to improve there too. But I discovered that through conversations with team members and being receptive to feedback. The live process has helped me soften my diplomacy skills and realize, oh, I've got an audience. I need to be extra kind and extra nice and be extra careful with what I say because, and it's not even because, not because I'm on the limelight, because I care about people. I don't have any intention to hurt people, but sometimes I say things that can come across as hurtful if I'm not careful. Make sense?
Mm, that's yeah, but it's a very deep conversation, to be honest, because my
Mhm.
life motto that I define for myself is do no harm in thoughts, words, or actions.
Mhm.
Right? So I don't even think negative things about people because it doesn't serve me. At the same time, because I have these boundaries, behavioral boundaries, or even I don't know
I
if I
guess my question is, what if your thoughts, words, and deeds have hurt somebody though, and
that's
you don't even realize it, Erin? Because
oh
I would say there's certain aspects of coming on the show that created a hurt, but I didn't express it because I don't want to kill the mood, and I didn't know how well it would be received. And so, if you assume that just because I choose to think and act and claim that I don't hurt people, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't.
no, that is the very good point because you don't. Because the hurt is in the head of a receiver.
The hurt is in the head of the right, exactly.
So
So,
if you know that you don't intend to hurt anybody and you genuinely don't intend to do so, your intentions are pure. So your
mm,
message can be received in many different ways, right? I
yeah,
can just brush it off and disregard it because I know that you wish me well and your intentions are good. So I'm not going to pay attention. Or I can just really get sulky, upset, and go and be moody for a couple of days and then have a go back. Or I can swear back and say that you are whoever because you hurt and upset me. So, as a receiver, I have a choice of how to react to what you say.
right.
So, you didn't hurt. If you didn't mean to hurt, you didn't. But if somebody is hurt, they need to ask themselves why that perception is so over, overpowering.
Yeah. So it's an
Yeah,
interesting
this is
dynamic too.
this is
When
Wayne Dyer, by the way.
It's an interesting dynamic when you bring in a third, fourth, and fifth person to the equation, right? So, let's use an extreme example. Um, you have a child, you have two children.
Hmm.
One's swinging a big stick very fast at the next child on accident. It might even be on accident,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
right? And you have a split second to react on it. And this isn't a perfect analogy because we didn't prepare this in advance. Like this is just us having fun ad libbing. But it's sometimes you're put in a position where your response, the reaction to the situation, there's a dynamic effect both ways. Your action to intervene might, let's say that child, you put your arm in between and that child's arm hits your arm. Well, their arm's going to get hurt, but
Hmm.
the other child's been protected and you
Yeah.
had no intention of hurting anybody, but the hurt was a cause and effect of the reality of the situation. Now, I know these words can be twisted and used as a scapegoat tactic for saying like, oh no, I wasn't ever intending to hurt them. I just did it. I'm not trying to create a safe harbor for people who are narcissistic, and hurt people by choice. But a lot of times our actions end up the indirect reality of our actions is it leads to hurting another party in the equation. And I don't think
Right.
we often
Okay.
see that.
You know what? First of all, before we're talking about words, and now you actually used a totally different example of
Yeah.
protecting a smaller child. And if it hurts, to another one that, you know, actions come with consequences.
Yeah.
And I believe, and I'm really, I think I watched too much of Super Nanny. I was binging on it, where I learned that from the very beginning, children has to be aware of their own responsibilities and consequences of their choices,
Yeah.
right? So if you choose to have this stick, around a smaller sibling, that thanks God that you hurt a little bit and somebody, didn't stay without a hat. So it's just not a fair example.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. And I think the the adults of the world, we face that just like children. We are giant children, all learning through the process, sometimes effortlessly, sometimes with difficulty.
And
Um,
because we were not told responsibility. When you go, I don't know about the States here, it's everywhere. If you are rude to our personnel, gonna be that. If you do this, you're gonna go to jail. If you do, the presupposition immediately that you're gonna do it, and it's like people have no responsibility for their actions, so they always have to be boarded by all this, big signs of how what not to do because then it's going to be consequence. Because from the very beginning, we don't educate our children that way. They can do whatever they please. I believe
hmm.
that's not correct, and this is what we get, as a result of them growing up as adults, such as ghosting, for example.
As ghosting,
Yeah, you
teach me,
people. Hmm?
teach me about that. What do you mean?
A ghosting is the thing when somebody disappears without explaining the reason. So I guess when there's no breakup with no explanation, people just
Mm,
disappear. And basically, it's no good to the receiver. And simply because the person is not ready to think about the consequences of their behavior or face responsibility for what's going to happen and how they have to behave in the situation. They're easy to avoid it altogether. It's just no good because I think it happens not only private life, it happens in business
in
relations.
the business world, the term ghosting gets utilized a lot as a variable, and it's interesting. And there's a great course. There's a lot of great courses on co-parenting with a high conflict parent,
Yeah.
and in those, one of the best recommendations that it gives you is if you're dealing with somebody who is toxic in nature, the best thing you can do is disappear, is just not respond. And so it's actually a psychologically proven method to protect people. However, in the sales world, a lot of people use the term ghosting very loosely. And I find it really funny and fascinating
Mm.
because somebody will come into the office and they'll say, man, I was ghosted on that call. And they're basically setting a victim mentality for themselves when in reality, what if that person died yesterday? What if that person, had an emergency and literally couldn't get to their phone and talk to you? And there's a completely irrational reason for them to have not communicated yet. And what if they're just ignorant to the reality of the value of meetings compared to you? But what I see most business owners and sales associates miss within that reality is if somebody chose not to show up to an appointment, the odds are we weren't attractive enough to get them to be there, because had the appointment been with Taylor Swift, the person wouldn't have ghosted. Had the appointment been with Bill Gates, the person wouldn't have ghosted. But if we don't set clear enough value for our own appointments and we don't make sure that we've done everything possible to do that, then the onus is on us to see how can we be more valuable, not on labeling ourselves as a victim by saying that person ghosted me.
All right. Okay. I have two things.
Yeah, yeah.
The first one, in terms of why we prefer to think, the first reaction that they ghosted because we're conditioned. There are so many people that use these tactics. that when somebody honestly couldn't make it for one of these, horrible reasons that you mentioned earlier, we don't even give them, benefit of a doubt because we're
Right.
conditioned to believe that this is how people behave. That's just all.
Right. That's poor leadership on our part if we
Yeah.
react that way.
And then another thing, and that is back to our conversation about who is feeling upset and who is not, and who is insulting or hurting each other.
Uh-huh.
Um, the problem is when somebody, pardon my French, has no balls to come back to you and say that they don't want to work with you, see you, you are not the right. I don't know what the reason is, or they can't do it today. If they can't come back to you and communicate it to you, so why do you take it on yourself? Why don't you look at this person and think that first of all they're not ethical, they are weak, they have they're insecure, they have poor self-esteem, they're afraid of confrontation.
Are you saying that they should be labeled as such?
I don't believe that anybody should be labeled anything because any label gonna bring a lot of meaning
Okay.
together with it.
I
So
thought,
let's
because
reconcile together.
it
But
sounded
instead
like
of
the
looking
assumption was that those are the realities, when in reality, their reason for doing such might, again, no, I agree with you. In some cases, it's because they don't have any balls. I'm okay with that, and thank you for labeling the French on that. That makes sense. And I do think that there's also other reasons why people disappear. Richard Branson, for instance, the guy has hundreds of millions of people who know his name and want his time and attention. And so if he sets an appointment with somebody, or you're applying for the TED Talk and you're constantly badgering TED Talk for, I want to be on your stage. Why are you putting them on your stage? It's not going to be surprising if they try to say whatever they can to get you to kind of go away, politely and
yeah,
softly. So a lot of times it has to do with the reality that people have unhealthy boundaries and push through territories where they shouldn't. And the best thing you can do is create some type of soft wall that doesn't hurt them, but that allows you to protect your own time.
yeah, or you set the boundaries from the very beginning and communicate that. I don't know. I will reply only to one email per day. Sorry if it's not going to be yours.
Right.
Right? So it just
That's true.
something like expectation. So people, what I actually, when I was studying psychology, what I found absolutely fascinating because I've never thought about it, that boundaries mean freedom.
Yeah,
That never occurred to me because
exactly.
when you know these boundaries, within them, you are free to do whatever you want to do because you're not going to cross. You
Good call. Good
know,
call. Boundaries in marriage. This
uh,
book has been pouring.
it's a must. It's a must. Yeah.
It's a great one. And
Those
so thank
guys
you for that.
Those
Thank
guys in the audience who are still married, please don't disregard this book.
it's a fantastic book, and thank you for highlighting that. And in relation to expectations, I'll wrap up on this. One of my absolute favorite quotes in life was by Shakespeare, and I have no idea how people got so wise back in the day before all the materials that we have, but so many did. And he said, "Expectation is the root of all heartache."
All
And
right.
I love that reality because it's helped me realize anytime I have an expectation on somebody else, I'm probably going to end up disappointed because it's not my job to control somebody else's
Yeah.
actions, right? And I can
Very
have aspirations and hope, but I've learned to try to steer my life away from the toxic nature of expectations and how it affected previous relationships. This was a fantastic discussion,
Just
Erin
to
Andrea.
disappoint
Go
you,
ahead.
just to disappoint you, this sentence actually the first came from Buddha
From
because
who?
this Buddha,
From Buddha. No, it doesn't
yeah,
disappoint me at all. Why would it disappoint me?
yeah, Shakespeare. Basically, Buddha said that um, desires and expectations are cause of suffering, are the
Yeah,
cause of suffering.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's
I would say,
it resonates to me as a truth.
yeah.
And it's something that kind of fills my soul. So those of you listening in, if you have your own debate inside of this coin, by all means, bring it in. Like that's the whole point of this show is mastermind, figure out visions, explore, gain clarity ourselves, while also hoping that some of you end up inspired by it as well and are able to gain clarity for yourselves. We're going to leave in the show notes below the action steps as well for how you can get involved with Erin Andrea Craske, how you can work with her, what resources she has. And then, of course, in the top right corner, we've got our trusty Be Our Guest button as well. If you want to come on the show and share your vision as well, we'd be happy to hear you out about it and see how it is you're going about and serving others. So, Erin, anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah, one thought that came to mind one is a reaction to what you just said. I think that there was so much wisdom earlier because life was purer. We didn't have that many distractions. We didn't have that many desires because there was not much to desire. And from that place, you had more opportunities to develop deep thinking rather than right now, our brains are too busy with lots of things that don't serve us.
That's huge. I didn't get to live in both eras, so I can only be grateful for my own in this case. But again, fantastic thoughts, and everybody out there, we wish you the best as you continue to build your visions. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out